We're entering the Christmas season now, filled with jingle bells and hot chocolate and Christmas lights and all this different stuff, filled with Christmas cheer. While there are special traditions in each family, overall, we can all agree on some basic things when it comes to Christmas. When you picture Christmas, you picture a Christmas tree, you picture these different stuff. There's one book that inspired the modern Christmas that we all know and love, and that is A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. Today I'm going to review that. I'm going to break it down to 3 points. The summary of the book, and then I'll talk about the history of how this book was written, because there's a deep, sad history behind this book. And then finally I'll talk about my thoughts personally on this book. So if you just want to hear my thoughts, I'll leave chapters down below so you can just skip straight to that point if you already know the story. With that being said, let's jump in and just start talking about what this book is. So for those who somehow don't know, A Christmas Carol is the story of Ebenezer Scrooge, an old, wealthy man who has a hatred for Christmas. And through this book, you figure out why, and you see as he changes into a good man. It's filled with some very quotable lines. My favorite, especially this last time reading it, was the line, "If they would rather die and decrease the surplus population." I love that line. It's so savage. But anyways, summary of the story. So this old miser named Ebenezer Scrooge runs this money change spot with his assistant, Bob Cratchit. As you open the book, you get to hear about his late partner, Jacob Marley, and how he had died, and now it's been 7 years since his death, and he's still running this business under both of their names. And you get to witness his nephew, Fred, come in and offer him to come to Christmas dinner, and you get to see his hatred for Christmas and the fact that his nephew would invite him to Christmas. Then you get to see 2 gentlemen come in asking for donations to help the poor and needy. And that's where you get the 2 famous lines. The one I first said about decreasing the surplus population, and the other one is, "Are there no prisons? Are there no union workhouses?" Basically talk about how he's like, okay, these people have been hard time paying for themselves. He's like, okay, we have prisons for those people. Just put them in there. A very common thing that people like to say even nowadays about people. So then after that, we get to witness him going home and just seeing him hitting Christmas carols and all this different stuff. And when he gets home, that's when he runs into the ghost of his late partner, Jacob Marley. And Jacob Marley's ghost is covered in chains and boxes, and he explains that these chains and boxes are all the guilt and selfish desires he had in his life that he couldn't get rid of before he died. And he's coming to warn his partner that he has time to change his life around, become a good man before he becomes like them. And he warns him that he's going to have 3 visitors coming to show him the error of his way and lead him back to good. Before leaving, Jacob shows outside the window there's ghosts everywhere, all in conditions like his, and they're all walking up to people and trying to help them. And Jacob explains that these people are trying to help people after they died because they didn't do it in their life. This is one of the hardest ghosts to explain because of the fact that the appearance is both of an old man and a young boy. His head's on fire. There's a bunch of strange things about this character, but it's really well explained what he looks like. And this ghost takes him on a journey through his past to show different scenes of his life, which includes seeing Scrooge as a young boy alone in a schoolhouse after all his friends left for the holiday. And you get to see him, Scrooge, weep for the first time out of pity for his own self. Then the next scene, you get to see his sister come to say, "Father's willing to allow you to come home this year for Christmas." You get to witness the kindness of this young girl, and he thinks about the fact of how he treated his nephew, her child. You get to witness a Christmas party where Scrooge's first employer has this big Christmas party, and it's joyful, and it's not too grand. It's so filled with life, and it ties back into the whole thing where he was saying is, if you don't have the money to celebrate Christmas, why bother in the first place? It ties back to that of, no, these people are able to celebrate Christmas like that. You get to witness in that moment also him meeting his future fiance. We cut next to his now fiance breaking up with him, Belle, saying that he has become too in love with money and he doesn't love other people now. Then we cut to years later. We see Belle again with her now family, and she's reminiscing with her husband on her old fiance, Ebenezer, and how he's become a miserable old man now. At this point, Scrooge has enough with the past, and he puts a cap over the first ghost's head, and he disappears. The next night, he encounters the second ghost. This one is a jolly old man, kind of like a Santa-like figure. And he is the ghost of Christmas present. And he takes him through the streets on Christmas Day, and you see the joyfulness, the happiness of all these people. And then he takes him to his nephew Fred's party, and you get to see the joy they're having, but you also get to see a couple moments of them talking about Ebenezer. And you get to hear his nephew defend him and say, I will continue to invite him even if he doesn't show up year after year, because I want some hope in his life, and he doesn't want it. He's destroying his own life. But you also see them joking around about him, and Scrooge is starting to get into the mode of, okay, I kind of want to be here. Then he gets Kyle off, and he gets to see another image, and this is of Bob Cratchit, his underpaid clerk, who's coming home, and you get to meet his poor sickly son, Tiny Tim. You get to see the joyfulness in this kid, who is sickly, on crutches, can barely walk, but is so happy. So happy. And you get to see how they're having a happy meal. Again, it comes up too of the same thing of Bob Cratchit is somewhat defending Scrooge, but also being able to say, yeah, but he's a miserable man. And then we see other Christmas dinners, the miners, and all these different people. And at that point, the ghost of Christmas present takes him back home. But before he leaves, Scrooge notices two clean hands coming out of underneath his robes. And he pulls them up to show they are two kids, Ingrid's and Want. As he's looking at these hideous looking kids, and he's asking, what can we do about it? And the ghost of Christmas present gives the same response as Scrooge gave to those gentlemen. Are there no prisons? Are there no workhouses? Third ghost is a little bit different. This one is like a reaper in the night. He's completely shadowed in darkness, black hood covering his face. He is ominous and does not speak. But he takes him to one place. This place where you see the funeral of a man. You don't get to see who it is, but it's this old man who died. And you get to witness no one really cares about this man at all. People talk badly about him, but no one cares about him at all. And you get to witness as free people, and they steal stuff from this man, and they're selling them, and they have no regard for this man. And finally, he asks, is there anyone who's has any feelings about this man's death at all? Like, show me something. Like, I need something. And the spirit shows him one family who is excited about the man's death because they owed him money, and because of his death, they don't owe him. Finally, he asks the question, who is this man? And the spirit takes him to a graveyard and points at the gravestone where it says, Ebenezer Scrooge. At that point, Ebenezer promises, I promise I will honor Christmas in my heart. I will try to keep it all year long. I will live in the past, present, and the future. And at that point, he realizes that he is no longer with the spirit, and he's just clinging onto his bed. And then he figures out, guess what? It's Christmas morning, and he is happy to be on Christmas, and he's joyful. He sends a Christmas turkey to Bob Cratchit's house, the biggest turkey he can find, and he goes to his nephew's party, and he is the life of the party. And the next day when Bob Cratchit comes in, he gives him a raise, and he does everything in his power to help make sure that Tiny Tim gets what he needs, and Tiny Tim lives because of that. And we leave with the famous quote from Tiny Tim, God bless us, everyone. That is the story of A Christmas Carol. Now, what is the history behind it? And why is this important? Like, some stories you can just read a book and be fine, but I feel like with this story, it's so important that you understand the history behind where this book came from. It makes the story so much deeper than just a man who learns to love Christmas. It's a commentary from Charles Dickens on the world he was living in, and the world we still somewhat live in. So let's start with what happened in Charles Dickens' life that caused him to make this story. So his father went to prison when he was a kid for, not failing to pay his taxes. So he was forced to work in a factory as a kid. That was a very common thing back then. Now we have labor laws. Back then they did not have the same type of stuff. Kids were forced to work from a very young age, work in the mines, kid miners. It was a very common thing. That was the life they lived in. And so his commentary on this book has to play into that, with the whole thing of why they're not prisons, are they not union workhouses. He came to writing this story from the standpoint of he was getting older. As he was older, he was writing a couple books, and his books weren't doing well. But he started noticing something else, something he really wanted to address, and that is the treatment of the poor and all. And he met plenty of people who were on his side, but he also met plenty of people who weren't, including people who said almost those exact lines of, hey, just allow the poor to die. I mean, it would decrease the surplus population. It would just allow these people to die. Where are these workhouses? Where, that was the people he was running into. These people were real people that he was running into. And eventually he realized a speech would not do enough. He needed to write a book about it. And that's where he came up with the idea. He only decided finally to put Christmas in it because Christmas was starting to get popular back then. We had Queen Victoria's husband had brought some traditions from Germany to England of the Christmas tree and different stuff like that. And Christmas was on a rise. This was, the Victorian in England. It was classy. Classy was coming up there. And this book, he's like, I'll play into that. And really, this book is what kicked it off even more so. So he wrote this book in a very short time, getting it published by Christmas. By Christmas Eve, it sold out. It took a lot of money to make this because he wanted to make sure, and sadly I don't have a copy of the book right here, but look up what the illustrations of this book looks like. It's beautiful. He really wanted to take the time to make this beautiful book, but with a powerful message. There are rumors that this book caused an increase in, donations to the poor. That's not 100%. We can't prove that, but it's a cool story to say that happened. But the point of it was that he was finally able to get that message out there to the public. And now we still think about that today. When people are like Scrooge, that's a very common thing to say. You are a Scrooge if you are hating on Christmas. You're either a Grinch or a Scrooge. You hate the poor. You hate those people. You're acting like it's now a very common thing nowadays in Christmas. Is tied to this idea of giving and all. It always should have been. It always was supposed to be, but that really kicked it off. Another sad thing is the fact that back then copyright was different. And so despite all the work he put into this and this beautiful story, yes, his whole point of making this was not just to make money. In the same way, he had to provide for family, and copyright back then was so loose that people found a way to get around it and put out their own copies of this book without his permission. There were different plays going on without his permission. Nowadays, it wouldn't happen, but I think that's a really sad fact of he didn't make as much money. That book made a bunch off of it. He didn't get his rightful money from it because of copyright, and people were able to just make their own copies and sell them. And it was a really sad thing. I was learning about it more. One day I might put out a video where I just break down the history of copyright. It's unfair that he wrote the book and other people made the money off of it. But on to my own thoughts about this book. My own thoughts, pretty simple. This book is amazing. I love this story. I'll start with a couple of negative things first. One, I felt like it was the first page and a half was all dealing with just explaining, by the way, Jacob Marley is dead. Just so you know, he's 100% dead. And we went on for way too long talking about that and then started the story. And I'm like, I don't know, it felt like it was one of those things where okay, this is going on. Great way to start. But then it went cut off that. It was suddenly just a U-turn backwards. All right, now we're back onto this story. And it did a great job explaining Scrooge, but in the same way, I don't know how you would look. Maybe you could have started with the Scrooge thing, then when it came to the door knocker, then just made it so, oh yeah, and then you had that whole thing about him. Maybe have a little bit right there. I don't know, I'm not going to criticize too much Charles Dickens' writing. He's incredible. This book, it came out in 1843. It's a pretty old book and very well done. I don't know. It's just that is a criticism I have, is the fact that it felt like it was going on for that too long. And not actually it was going on for too long, but it felt like it was kind of, okay, let's start up by mentioning that he's dead. Let's talk about that for a little bit. And then we're going to go completely off topic. Not until almost the end of the chapter do you actually get to see him again. At that point, you're expecting people to then be able to remember back to the beginning of the chapter. And yes, you should do that, but in the same way, it is somewhat good to try to keep that stuff closer together, I feel like. It felt like it was too much of a change of topic suddenly, and then going back, it was like, okay, no, hold on. Stay with the topic, finish that topic, then move on. Or in that case, I would have, again, I feel like if I wrote that book, I would probably put it in, just stop with explaining Scrooge. Scrooge, well, he was a mean guy. Maybe have a little bit of, when he mentions his partner, going a little bit oh yeah, his partner died, and then have maybe one of those paragraphs there. And then at the end, and then at the point where he sees, Marley's face in the door knocker. Like, for example, you could do something like this. How it happened that Scrooge, having his key in the lock of the door, saw in the knocker without it undergoing any immediate process of changing not a knocker, but Marley's face. Then you cut back to the beginning. Marley was dead. To start with that, there was no doubt whatever about that. The register of his burial was signed by the coroner man, and the clerk, and the undertaker, and the chief mourner. Scrooge signed it. Old Marley was dead as a doornail. See, like, I feel like that's almost better to just have that moment where it's just like, okay, it's like, okay, yeah, you begin with somewhat with him, can go back and then, yeah, he saw his face. Now let's go into that. Like, I just felt like I would have probably written it like that. It just felt, in my opinion, felt a little bit better that way. I don't know. That's just me. The other negative side I have is that of the fact that I did feel like Scrooge's transformation was a little bit too quick. The very first one, he was breaking down. But also, in general, I felt like it was one of those things where to be honest, I haven't watched or read the book in years. I grew up watching the 1950s version of the movie when I was a little kid. Loved it, but I hadn't seen it in years. I think the last version I saw was the Muppets one, maybe 10 years ago or something like that. So it's been a while since but I do know the story really well. But but I remember him being more hesitant towards this stuff. It's like, oh yeah, these ghosts are gonna come. I do kind of like the fact that it's like, Marley's like, yeah, look at these people. And he's like, okay, yeah, I want the change. Go ahead, send these ghosts. It's like, I remember it being more of like, hey, these ghosts are gonna come, whether you like it or not. And he's like, I don't want this. And then eventually he's like, okay, I'll take it. But it's a little bit, in the book, it's a little bit more like, yeah, no, okay, I don't want to become like you. Thank you. Take these ghosts. Like, I'll take the ghost. Like, I mean, I don't know. I felt like it was a little bit too much of like this grumpy old man who then he sees younger himself and he just cries right away. But I also will say, from a positive standpoint, it also is perfectly set up how they did it. Okay, they broke down his nature of the one person he loved was himself. Okay, let's open that up. Pity yourself. Then after that, you can go on and slowly open up more. And I thought that was well done. But it was just, I don't know, it just felt like it was too much there wasn't enough of a transformation. In the end, it kind of felt like the transformation happened the moment he saw Jacob Marley. And after that, it's just, the other ghosts were just there to encourage it, but not actually like, he was already changed. Like, I don't know, I don't think he was fully changed, but it was in the same way. It's like, I remember them doing a lot more to, like, he started out more grumpy and he slowly became more and more, but apparently not. I don't know. I thought that was something that I'm like, okay, it's less of a bad thing and more of something that I would just don't remember. So it probably was that way. And I do think it was well done. But it was just, I think I was just kind of confused when I read it. I'm like, I don't remember it being this easy. But okay. But yeah, overall, I would say this book is I love this book. This book is amazing. The story is one of the greatest Christmas stories of all time. And I'm definitely going to watch A Christmas Carol again this year, just one version, find a version, watch it. Yeah, this story it inspires so much of what we consider as Christmas now. If you guys haven't read A Christmas Carol recently, I recommend you guys picking it up because it is a good story to read. Read to your kids, read it by yourself, whatever you need to do. Have fun with reading it. I give it a solid 8 out of 10. It's a pretty good story, pretty good book. I can't wait. I don't have it right now. As I explained before, I live in Alaska right now. I plan to try to keep as much as I can to 2 bags. I might be able to just drive down the Alaska Highway down to lower 48 when I leave Alaska, but I might just be flying out, so I want to keep as limited stuff as I can up here, so I'm not going to buy too much books, but it's definitely going to be on my list of books. Then I'm going to get a nice, good, solid copy of Christmas Carol once I'm back down in the lower 48 again, because it is a good book. And it's worth getting a nice copy of it. Tell me your thoughts below. Tell me if there's any books you want me to review on this channel. We're only just getting started. There's plenty more to come. One thing I thought of as I was making this, because this review is actually going to be a little bit longer than I was expecting it to be. I was assuming I could just go for the summary very quickly, but I felt like I think I better went on for a little bit longer with the summary. So if you guys want to see reviews where it's just, okay, I don't care about the history. I don't care. Like, even if there is great stuff in history, I don't care about the history. I just want to hear your thoughts. Tell me below. What I'll do is I'll probably still put out videos like this, but then also put out videos quick review called like Peter's quick reviews, or like, I don't know, something like quick reviews on books was just a couple minutes of this book is good. This is my thoughts about the book. Simple book review. I'm willing to put out videos like that, but I will always try to put out videos like this too, because it's important, and I'll put out a video talking about this in depth. It's important to understand the history behind these books, to really understand what's going on.